Have you ever looked at a map, seen Singapore, this tiny island, and just wondered, how did that become a massive global financial giant? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on their secret sauce. We're talking about the brilliant tax strategies that turned it into an absolute magnet for the world's money. So yeah, how'd they pull it off? Let's dive right in.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on the just staggering scale of what Singapore's achieved. Then we'll get to know the key players in this whole world. After that, we are going to dissect the two-part strategy that made it all happen, looking at the perks for both the money and the people managing it. And finally, we'll see the incredible results of this whole playbook.
Okay, first things first. Let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale we are talking about here, because the numbers are, and I mean this, genuinely mind-blowing.
Okay, let that number sink in for a second. Over $6 trillion. That's trillion with a T. I mean, to give you some perspective, that is bigger than the entire economy of most countries on this planet. It's just a staggering amount of money, and it screams one thing loud and clear. Singapore is a true global financial powerhouse. And listen, this didn't happen overnight. Just look at the trend on this chart. It's not some lucky fluke. It's a steady, relentless climb, going from just under $4 trillion back in 2019 to where it is today. That kind of consistent growth shows you there's a really deliberate and, obviously, incredibly successful long-term strategy at play here. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The former head of Singapore's central bank, Ravi Menon, he put it perfectly. Singapore has strategically made itself the gateway for global money looking to get a piece of Asia's growth. If you want to invest in Asia, you go through Singapore. It's the go-to. So that brings us right to the big question, the reason we're here. How in the world did they do it? How do you build a financial fortress like this basically from the ground up? Well, the answer is in a very clever, very targeted plan. But before we can get into the master plan, we've got to understand the two main characters in this story, the funds themselves and, of course, the people who manage them. So what even is an investment fund? Super simple, really. It's just a big pot of money. It pulls cash from lots of different investors. So instead of you or me trying to pick winning stocks, we just put our money into this collective pot and let the experts handle the rest. And this little chart here shows you exactly how it works. Investors put their cash into the fund manager uses that big pool of cash to make investments, and then, hopefully, the profits flow back to the investors, minus some fees for the manager, of course. It's a simple idea, but it is incredibly powerful. Okay, so we know the players now. Let's get to the how. This is where it's really interesting. The secret to Singapore's success is this targeted, two-pronged incentive plan. And here is the genius of it all. Singapore realized you can't just have one without the other. It's not enough to attract the big pools of money, the funds. You also have to attract the brilliant minds who know how to manage that money, the managers. So what did they do? They rolled out the red carpet for both. So let's dig into the first part of this plan, the incentives they created to lure the actual funds, the big pools of capital, to their shores. This table really lays it all out. Think of these schemes like different tiers of a club membership, each with its own special tax perks. You'll see that a couple require a stamp of approval from the MAS. That's the Monetary Authority of Singapore, their central bank. And look at the trade-offs. The 13D scheme is super flexible. It's for offshore funds, no minimum size. Then you level up to the 13O, and you've got to have a base in Singapore with actual staff on the ground. And then there's the big one, the 13U, for the real heavy hitters. We're talking a $50 million minimum, but it gives you the most freedom. It's a really sophisticated system designed to have an answer for everyone, from tiny startups to global giants. Okay, so you've got the money. Great. Now, how do you convince the best and brightest minds in the world to come manage it? Let's flip the coin and look at the other side. For the managers, Singapore basically created this ladder of incentives. Right at the bottom rung, qualifying managers get this amazing concessionary tax rate, just 10% on their fee income. But check this out, it gets even better. If your firm decides to commit and list on the Singapore Stock Exchange, boom, they cut that rate in half to just 5%. And then, the grand prize, the top of the ladder. If you invest in Singapore's own local companies, your tax rate on those fees drops to 0. Zilch. It's a masterclass in getting people to integrate into your local economy. So what's the end result of all this? I mean, what happens when you roll out the red carpet for both the capital and the talent? What kind of ecosystem does that actually create? It creates this. This chart is amazing. It shows the incredible diversity they've managed to attract. It's not just one type of money. A massive 40% is in private equity and venture capital. That's the stuff that fuels new companies and innovation. But you've also got hedge funds, family offices, traditional managers. It's a rich, varied, and because of that, a really resilient financial ecosystem.
And the numbers behind that ecosystem are just as impressive. We're talking about over 1,000 VCCs. That stands for Variable Capital Companies, by the way. It's a super modern and flexible way to structure a fund. These represent thousands of sub-funds, all managed by more than 600 regulated firms. And they're all supported by an entire industry of lawyers, accountants, you name it. This shows you it's not just about flashy tax breaks. It's about building a deep, self-sustaining financial industry from the ground up. So when you put it all together, it's crystal clear. Singapore's success? It was no accident. It was the result of deliberate, incredibly intelligent design. And that kind of leaves us with this big, fascinating question, doesn't it? In this massive global game, this competition for trillions of dollars, what's the next move? What innovative incentives will countries dream up next? What will the red carpet of the future actually look like? It's definitely something to think about.